It was until 2016 when I actually put out a poem, and the poem was about relationships and friendships and marriage and self-esteem. I'm gonna play it right here. Listen carefully.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to share something with you guys that I learned from a very special mentor of mine. His name is Zechariah. Thank you, sir. I want to remind you guys why people get married. And this is really from a man's side, right? Men lately have not been able to explain themselves in a way that we don't come off as an asshole, right? Because we're real stern. We just speak the truth. We have no filter. And we're punished for it. So here I go. This is for all my married men out there right now. And ladies, listen carefully, okay? Let me explain. A man can love you and not marry you. A man can love you and a man can have sex with you for years without marrying you. But immediately, he finds someone who brings stability in his life. So he marries her. What I mean by stability is peace of mind. I've seen some guys who made this statement: I love this lady, but I don't think I can spend the rest of my life with her. Men are visionaries. When we think about marriage, we don't think about wedding dresses. We don't think about bridesmaids. We don't think about flowers, whatever, the whole venue. We don't care about that stuff. We think whether or not a woman can help me build a home. Can she take care of my kids? Can she give me a peace of mind? Men don't like ladies who give them discomfort. This is why a man can stay with a woman for years and meet another in a month, then get married with the girl that he only met a month ago. It's the comfort of having a peace of mind they want. Sex is a pleasure. Love is an affection. Respect is stability. Ladies, if you're looking for him to give you that ring and he hasn't put that ring on your finger yet, look within yourselves real quick. Are you offering stability to your man?
When I shifted to relationship content, that's when my social media campaign finally took off. I mean, it exploded. I went from 100 followers to 10,000 overnight. And as I continued to discuss about divorce, as I continued to gain experience in that realm between 2018 and 2019, I started getting more followers. Now the numbers were 50-50. I had 50% men, 50% women, and they were all my age, majority of them. I had a few, about 10% of them were outside, older than me. No one younger, right? This is where it started getting weird for me. It resonated and connected with my viewers so deeply that I would receive hate messages from women that I can't say the things that I'm saying online, and that they're painful, and that that I needed boundaries. But men would start with the same thing. Like, you suck, KT. That's my online name. Like, no one wants to hear you talk. I'm like, I'm sorry you feel that way. I had a lot more patience back then. And then they would open up slightly. And I don't know what it was. But just like this, there was a lot of silence in between. And before you knew it, they would say things like, man, my wife just left me and took the kids, man. I don't want to pay child support. I'm gonna lose everything, man. I don't, they would go there. And all I would say is, tell me more. Tell me about it. I'm here to listen. 1 call a week turned into 2 calls a week. 2 calls a week turned into 3. And before you knew it, like, my phone wouldn't stop ringing on Messenger. Questions would not stop raining in, and it got a little crazy. It's not that I couldn't handle it, though. I was actually kind of enjoying it, the stardom moment. And I've never been married. I was in a 15-year relationship at the time, so I didn't really offer any advice. These men, even though they started out criticizing me in a very negative way, something deep inside of me just knew that they needed someone to listen to, someone who they can relate to, somebody who they can share their story with. And so I played the role. Then one day, I received a call from a guy in Alaska, and I was in a hurry. I had to go to a community event, and I was a little rude to him. I said, hey, I picked up the phone and I said, I'll call you back. And he screamed at me. He said, Johnson, if you don't come back here right now, I swear to God, I'm going to go on live and da-da-da. And I'm like, dude, I'm sorry, I got to go. And so I hung up. I got in my car and I left to the inauguration. And that's exactly what he did exactly what he said he was going to do. He went online, tagged me up on his page, and went live and attracted every single one of my followers, and proceeded to talking all kinds of crazy things about me that he didn't know, because I didn't know the guy, but he watched me diligently. And my followers they were like, hey man, there's this guy online talking bad about you, and they would be blowing up my phone. I didn't see it until an hour and a half later, and he was still going, still ranting, still complaining. One of my good friends, she called me up and she said, hey, he's still waiting for you. And so that's when I logged in to Messenger. The second I logged in, he pinged me on his live, and we went on. I went on there, and I just let him dig into me. And I said, hey, and to give you a visual of what he looked like on the phone, his face was covered in shadows. There was a dim light, and he was wearing a blue shirt. That's it. I couldn't really tell who he was, and his Facebook name was definitely fake. But I let him lay it into me over the phone, live on Facebook, for about a good 15, 20 minutes. And I said, are you done? And he just stayed quiet. And mind you, there are over 120 people watching this live event at this point. And something just took over me. The first thing I said after he went silent was, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you're going through what you're going through. And I want you to know you're not alone. I'm here for you. And I asked him, what is your greatest struggle today? And he went right for it. Typically, they'll hesitate, but he knew. And he was just waiting for someone to ask him that. talked about his wife leaving him, his kids leaving, and how he never paid attention to them, how he neglected them, and all he did every single day was hang out with his coworkers while his wife and his kids stayed at home, and he just drank all the time. And once he was done with his story, all right, so I said, I want to see your face come out of the shadows. And he did. He came out of the shadows, and I put my phone down, and camera facing me, there was a camera facing him, and I said, I want you to try this with me. So I put my hands down on my side. It's a Qigong breathing technique. I asked him, I'm going to do the first technique and you're just going to follow, and we're going to repeat 5 times. So imagine myself standing straight, feet together, arms down by my side, and as we breathe in, as slow as we can, my arms are raising up above my head simultaneously. And then once we get to the top, we breathe out even slower. And our hands come down. And I said, you ready? We're going to do that 5 times. So we stood there in front of 120 some people watching us live after he just laid it into me doing this Qigong exercise on Facebook. We went and did it 5 times. And just at the end of the 5th time, it was like his voice, like a totally new character had come out of him, and he said thanks. And he hung up the phone, and I just addressed everyone saying, hey guys, thank you guys for not saying anything negative, and not egging him on or instigating. I'll keep you guys updated. And sure enough, as soon as I hung up the live event, I got a call from him on the other side. He had mentioned that I still don't like you, Johnson. I still think your content's whack. The things you talk about is stupid. But I'll call you tomorrow. I said, anytime, brother. I'm right here. I am here. And from that day forth, he would call me 3 to 4 times a day, and I would pick up every damn call. Because despite his constant jabbering and hate and criticism and insults that he would just throw at me, trying to hurt me, I learned more from this guy, from all the insults and everything, than I have from anyone else. And this was the first time of me ever feeling something like this. Ever. And I didn't understand it. It was ineffable. Something that I could not explain. A feeling unexplicable, right? From something so negative. As time went on, I got more calls like this, except they got deeper and more personal, and this time they weren't in Alaska. They were here in Minnesota. So one day I was at one of my Bible study groups on Wednesday nights, and I got a messenger call. I don't quite remember how, but I received a messenger call and my phone's typically off, and it was from a kid. He would not stop pinging me on Messenger, so I excused myself from my group and I went outside and I said, "Hey, well, this is, KT, what's up?" Same thing. One dim light, he was in the shadows, barely see him, and first thing he said was, "I saw your content. You suck. You effing suck," right? And I was like, "Hey, man, I'm here to listen. If you just want to talk, this is starting to become a trend." Except this time he said, "I'm going to text you my address. And if you don't, come to my house." And as he said that, he stepped out of the shadows and he had a gun pointed at his head. "If you don't come to my house, I'm going to end it." And he hung up and he texted me his address. And at that moment, I couldn't even go back inside and tell my Bible study group what I was going. We were a close-knit group of guys, and this is a thing that I never left, but I just left without even telling anyone. I ran right into my car, turned on the GPS, and it was clear across town. 45 minutes away. But I got there in 30, and I didn't know what to do, right? I got there and I called him, I texted him, messaged him, nothing. His messenger was off. And I didn't know if this was a trap. I didn't know if, this was real, but I knew what I saw. So I arrived at this house. It was a corner house, kind of an old wooden siding house. It had a garage detached, white doors, no cars in the driveway, no cars in the street. This lot it didn't look like anyone had been there for a while. I go up to the garage and I sneak peek in there. I couldn't tell if anybody was in there, so I go knock on the front door. Nobody answered, so I opened it. I don't know why, but I opened it. I walk inside the door and the place is empty. There's nothing there, no furniture, no shoes, no smell. The walls are bare, there's no TV, anything, nothing. I'm like, oh my God, I'm tricked. But as soon as I was gonna turn around and shut the door, I couldn't get the image of the gun to the head and that the background matched. So I said, "Hello?" As I walked in the middle of the living room. "Is anybody home?" There's a stair, I go upstairs. And I just kept walking. Something told me go to the back room. I walked past the bathroom to the left, and there was a door with the open at the end of the hall. I rush over there and I walk in, and there he is in the closet with a noose around his neck and a gun to his head, as if it's been there for a while. His arms were shaking. Everything in his body was trembling. And he said, "Help me. Ba Gua." Like he had no control over his body anymore. It was like something else had taken over. So I walk up to him and I just grabbed the gun. I didn't rush. I didn't yell at him or anything, but I just walked up to him and I said, "Hey, everything's going to be okay." I grabbed it and I put it in my back pocket, and he looked at me and I looked at him. I'm like, "Hey, I want you to take a deep breath, okay? with me. Ready? And at this point, he's still shaking. And I'm like, hey. And I grabbed the noose off his neck. And my hands are on my side. I'm like, we're going to do a technique, a breathing technique. I'm going to do it first. You're going to watch me. And then you'll follow me afterwards, okay? And he said, yeah, okay. All right, put your feet together like this, hands to the side, and breathe in slow like this. You got that? He nods his head, yes. So we proceed to do it together 5 times. With each breath in, our arms go up above our heads. And each breath out, our arms come down to our back to our sides. And every time, the shaking, the trembling, the person that I first met when I got there, gone. And he just spoke. He was like, man, my family left me, man. Like, this is my house, you know? And they blame me for messing things up. They always blame me. I'm the, black sheep of the family. I didn't have a job. I couldn't help them pay the bills, so we lost the house. And they just left me here. They didn't want me to go with them to the new house. My kids went with them. My wife went with them, but they abandoned me here. At this point, we're still standing in the exact same spot. The gun is still in my back pocket, and he's just talking normally. I don't know what to do, man. I'm kind of a bum. He had a stutter to it. I can remember it clearly. Look at me. I'm fat. I'm ugly. I stink. I play video games all day. And I failed. And my family wants nothing to do with me. And I said, what were you going to do? Were you planning to just stay here? He's like, of course not. I don't have a car. I don't have anything. I don't even have shoes. And I looked down at his feet. Yeah, he had one pair of socks on, and that was it. He still was in his PJs, like what he explained, like his family just left him at the house. Eventually we sat down, and I listened, because I didn't know what else to say. I ended up taking him back to his family's house where they were staying at least, and I didn't share with them what happened. But I did sit down while he apologized and promised and begged and pleaded that he would be a better man, and I watched and I listened as his family just laid it into him, all the bad things that he did and he didn't do, and his responsibility that he didn't. Yeah. But I felt like I was needed there. He needed me there. I just said, when they asked me who I was, I'm his friend from work a long time ago. wanted to make sure he had at least some kind of work reference. There was more. This wasn't only the second time. This one, same thing. Messenger. And he was younger. He's about early 20s, maybe even teens. I never ask. I don't get names or specifics. I'm just there. He calls me up on Messenger, one of my followers, one of the 10,000. He says, F you, Johnson. Your content sucks, man. Like, I don't know how you do it every day, but you suck. Same thing. Same dark patch. Same kind of hidden. And he says, if you are really who you say you are, you're going to come to my house right now and we're going to talk. I'm like, okay. At this point, I'm pretty numb. This is the one right after the one I just told you. Yeah, I'm numb already. And he texts me his address and I go. Now that I'm talking about it out loud and recalling all the memories, everything inside of me said no. There was a lot of resistance there. But I knew that if I can save his life, and like all the other ones that I saved, I would go to this guy too. This time there was no urgency though. It was just slow, hesitant, resistant. And I kept telling myself, like, I don't know if I can keep doing this. So I just kept going, and I arrived at his house. Kind of the same scenario. It was in a really well-off neighborhood, big house, and when I got in there, the house was empty. Kind of the same deal. I say hello, and I walk to the end of the hall, and he's standing there in the middle of a bedroom on a stool with a noose over his neck. And he says, help me. I don't know how I got up here. Tiptoeing on a stool. I grabbed the chair next to him. And it wasn't a regular chair. It was a swivel desk office chair. I had to balance myself as I got up and I removed the noose from his head. And we both came down. This one, he's bawling his eyes out. He's crying. And I'm just there wanting to cry very badly, but knowing that I had to make sure I didn't come off like I was condescending or annoyed or anything, and I just stared at him and just let him cry. And I didn't hold him, I didn't touch him, I just let him do his thing. What felt forever. When he finally got to the point where he could talk, I said, hey, take a deep breath. So he does. And I say, hey, you ready? We're going to do a quick martial arts technique. Just put your feet together like this. You're going to watch me do it first. And you'll follow after, okay? We'll do it 5 times. You ready? He says yes. I put my hand on my side. And I breathe in deep. And I tell him, you got it? He says, yeah. All right, let's do it 5 times, okay? And just like that, his tears went away. The trembling went away. And he starts talking to me. He's like, man, my family's effed up, man. They left me, just left me here, saying that I'm a bum and I don't do anything. And like, you know, I wanted to marry my girl, but they didn't let me marry my girl because she was the same last name. And I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do, KT. What should I do, you know? And I'm like, well, how about we go see your family together? Maybe with me being there, someone who can vouch for you. And you can apologize, or you can say whatever you want to say. Just know that I'm there. And he says yes. And so we hop in my car. Dude doesn't have any shoes on. I don't know why that's a thing. And we go. I say, hey, where are your parents at? And he says he doesn't know. So we call him, got him on the phone. They're yelling at him, screaming at him, saying, you know, you're no good piece of nothing. You've been no good piece of nothing. You didn't graduate high school. I can totally just hear his mom laying it into him over the phone. And him just not wanting to take it. So we went to the local Burger King, grabbed some burgers, and we just ate. Just sat there. And I asked him, other than what you're going through, what is your greatest struggle today? So, as he was eating his burger, he said, you know what, Johnson? You know what my greatest struggle is women. And he started going on about how he wanted to experience the losing of virginity and how he wanted to get married with his girl so bad just so that he can, you know, do that and so on and so forth. And I was just like, I laughed. And so did he. I think he started realizing how stupid it was saying that out loud, because he definitely felt it. And together we kind of just shared a good laugh and understand that when I'm doing this, when I'm going through these things, not once did I ever tell my story or give any solicited advice about my experience. I just asked questions about them and said, hey, what would you guys like to do? Or what would you like me to do? And I just listened. Because I didn't know these guys. They were complete strangers. But because I was such an influencer and I had so much content out there and I was sharing so much of my life, and now I'm thinking about it and it's just now dawning on me that they knew me. They knew me through my content. They trusted me through my words. words and things that I seemingly felt that was nothing myself. And then I started asking myself, do I really know who I am now? And why I have been burdened with this? The calls didn't stop. Now they started coming from out of state. And a lot of those, other than not being there, were the same thing. Same age group, 19, teenish to my age. Nothing older. It was hard. If I was going to explain, at least attempt to explain, how this made me feel, numb. Because for some reason, doing this work, being the listener, you take on everything that they have. All of it. You absorb it for them. And I'm not saying that's the only way, but it's the way that worked. And it immediately went from extremes to extremes, or extremes to a lot less extreme. Except now, what was I going to do about my feelings? And that goes back to emotional intelligence. This is millennialsRus, and this is your DJ, your Daddy Johnson. Thank you for listening.